The Aztecs are best known for their enormous pyramids, fierce warriors, and grisly human sacrifices. However, a closer look reveals a remarkably complex civilization that flourished until the arrival of the Spanish in 1519. The Mesoamerican civilization was a confederation of city-states and ethnic groups centered around the Valley of Mexico and united by the Nahuatl language. Although commonly referred to as the Aztecs, a term popularized by Europeans in the 19th century, they referred to themselves by other names, including the Mexica or Tenochca. The Aztec Empire was founded in 1428, less than 100 years before it ended. Much of what we know about the Aztecs derives from a series of colorful hand-painted manuscripts from stretched deerskin or fabric weaved from agave plants. The works, similar to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs or modern-day comic books, feature a combination of writing and art to depict Aztec life, centered on its capital of Tenochtitlan in present-day Mexico City. Advances in fields such as medicine, science, and astronomy can be found throughout the Aztec culture. And yes, they also got into some weird, freaky stuff that led to copious amounts of blood and skulls. But to be fair, historians would be hard-pressed to find any religion without at least a few skeletons in its closet. Number 10. That old song and dance. Aztec warriors have a well-earned reputation as skilled fighters. Moreover, they would pummel their enemies while singing, dancing, and waving large banners, all of which gave a new meaning to the term war party. The use of musical instruments also held particular importance on the battlefield in order to help organize soldiers and send messages of enemy activity. The high-pitched sounds from pink-hued conch shells and the beating of drums helped to create a thunderous cacophony, made even louder with the Aztec war cries. According to one Spanish conquistador eyewitness, while they are fighting, they sing and dance, and from time to time utter the most frightful whoopings and whistlings in the world. And it is a certain fact to anyone who had never seen them fight before, their yells and manly appearance would be intimidating. Because the empire revolved around warfare politically and economically, the warrior class enjoyed an exalted status and paved the only path toward upward mobility. Appearance featured prominently as well, providing some decorated soldiers with battle dress adorned with colorful feathers and animal hides. Number 9. Same-day delivery. Fast. The last Aztec emperor, Moctezuma II, supposedly enjoyed a daily feast of 200 dishes, including fresh fish from the Atlantic coast located 250 miles away. To accommodate this, a team of relay runners served as couriers. Moreover, this route included a climb to an elevation of 7,000 feet, making it even more impressive. Aztec runners were also responsible for communicating important news. Placed at designated stations every 2.5 miles, the fast men ensured rapid delivery and response, especially on matters relating to military threats. When conquistador Hernan Cortes arrived in Veracruz in the spring of 1519, authorities in the Aztec capital were alerted well ahead of the Spaniards' march on Tenochtitlan. Today, descendants of these runners can still be found in Mexico and the American Southwest, embracing the tradition of extreme endurance running and scaling new heights. Number 8. Paddle power. At the peak of the empire, Tenochtitlan flourished as one of the largest cities in the world, hosting over 200,000 inhabitants. And with its central location located on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, the Aztec capital required an elaborate system of canoes to provide commercial and personal transportation. The main urban hub operated within a sprawling network of bridges and causeways connected to the mainland. A series of canals created additional access to all sections of the city. Canoes were constructed from a single tree trunk ranging from 14 to 50 feet in length. A skilled craftsman could produce a finished piece in about a week and typically featured a shallow draft and square bow. According to the Mendoza Codex, larger vessels could support a load in excess of several tons, requiring both skill and muscle to power the tens of thousands of watercraft in use on a daily basis. Poles and paddles were carved from wood, and the Aztecs believed that a god invented the elongated tool as a divine means to propel their boats. Number 7. Superfood for super people. Barrels of ink have been used by historians to write about the Aztec sophistication in a wide range of fields. Advanced nutrition can be added to that list. Nutrient-rich spirulina was used in spicy chili-flavored sauces and served with staples such as corn and tortillas, helping fuel the aforementioned Aztec prowess in fighting, killing, paddling, running, etc. Known to the locals as tequitlat, the blue-green algae was harvested from lakes in the Valley of Mexico. It would then be sun-dried and cut into bricks, allowing the preserved foodstuff to remain edible throughout the year. The aquatic plant contains chlorophyll, high protein, and an essential amino acid. It also yields an elevated content of vitamin B12, beta-carotene, and a variety of other vitamins including thiamine, riboflavin, and niacin. Spanish conquistadors, like petulant 5-year-olds refusing to eat their veggies, derisively characterized the colorful food as slime. Following their conquest, efforts to control flooding led to most of the lake being drained, destroying the primary source of algae. Today, the area remains an entirely dry lake basin. Number 6. They disapproved of drink but venerated drugs. Because drunkenness was seen as destructive of social order and harmony, drinking was largely prohibited. The fifth cup of beverages like pulque was said to be especially troublesome. Only noble people, or those who had some medicinal need for the alcohol, were permitted to drink at all. Psychedelic drugs or plant medicines, on the other hand, were held in extremely high regard. Peyote was used for visions and prophecies, morning glory was used as an intoxicant in ceremonies, and psilocybin mushrooms were considered to be the flesh of the divine, reserved for the holiest of religious occasions. Many other plants, including possibly salvia, were used by the Aztecs. The missionaries, however, were appalled at the use of these plants. Seeing them as the tool of the devil and the priests as essentially witches, they felt compelled to stamp out the practice, and often did that violently. Number 5. Their lives were determined from birth. The Aztecs saw childbirth as a battle and the mother as the victorious warrior. The baby, meanwhile, was seen as a captive, a prisoner taken in war, which is apt considering they didn't believe in free will. The life chances of the average Aztec were not determined by only sex and class, but by a range of other factors entirely beyond their control, from spiritual forces resident in the body to a complex system of astronumerology. As the anthropologist Jacques Sistel put it, each newborn Aztec was inserted automatically into the grasp of the omnipotent machine. For example, everyone could expect a fate based on the qualities inherent in their birth date according to the Aztec day count calendar. This was a 260-day calendar. This calendar consisted of 20 13-day months, each presided over by individual day signs, including animals, for example, the lizard or the monkey, as well as natural phenomena, wind, movement, death, etc. There were also man-made items included, for example, housing. It was a little like the modern Western zodiac, in other words, but considerably more specific and often devastatingly grim. Those born on 2 rabbits, the second day of the month of Rabbit, for instance, were apparently fated to a life of uncontrollable drunkenness, wallowing in their own filth and rejection from everyone they met. Naturally, they were also at much greater risk of injury and death, whether by accident or as capital punishment. The only way to mitigate such an unfortunate fate appears to have been a lifetime of penitence and piety, including nighttime worship, hard work, fasting, cleanliness, and order, but the odds, they were still stacked against them. Number 4. Their worldview was more rational than the West's. While European astronomers were getting burned at the stake for heresy, the Aztecs were developing a sophisticated cosmogony based on mathematics, astronomy, and ecology. Like many Eastern philosophical traditions, for example Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, theirs was a holistic worldview. Unlike the Catholic conquistadors, they didn't see the world in terms of good and evil. They saw it more scientifically, like a balance of order and chaos. Although missionaries attempted to align their own concept of sin with the Aztec concept of filth or degradation, it wasn't directly comparable. For one thing, the Aztecs' avoidance of filth was a pragmatic, not a faith-based concern. The consequences of bad action were observable in this life, not deferred to the afterlife as punishment in the hereafter. Indeed, the nature of the Aztec afterlife was determined not by the way one lived, but chiefly by the way one died. Such actions were to be avoided because they threatened the social order. Hence, they included things like theft, drunkenness, and adultery, but not sensual pleasure in general. The refusal to participate fully in life was an alien concept to the Aztecs. They saw earthly life as its own reward, not something profane or subordinate to the afterlife. Life and its pleasures were to be enjoyed, not denied. The key, prioritizing the pragmatic ideal of order as opposed to the more subjective and arbitrary Catholic ideal of virtue, was moderation, not repression. Underpinning this difference was the Aztecs' fundamentally unified worldview. Nothing was unholy, and everything was imbued, indeed made of, the same sacred energy and motion. In agreement with the non-duality teachings of ancient India, as well as the physicists of today, the Aztecs considered the appearance of separate objects to be illusory. They also saw no fundamental distinction between heaven and earth, as well as life and death, man and nature, and so on. These were simply balancing aspects of a unified whole, similar to the yin and the yang of Taoism. For them, creation wasn't a one-off act on a linear timeline toward Judgment Day. It was an eternal process of emergence, harmony, and change, the weaving of a sort of grand cosmic tapestry. Ironically, the simple, civil, and good-spirited nature that such a worldview imparted to the Aztecs is exactly what marked them out, in Columbus's eyes, as good candidates for conversion to Catholicism. Number 3. Everything was next to godliness. Another thing the Aztecs had in common with the Hindus was their belief in a pantheon of gods, not as standalone entities, but as facets of an essential unity. In addition to the major deities, the Aztecs recognized well over 1,000 others. Most were associated with farming and other important aspects of Aztec life, but some were extraordinary to say the least, whether because of their long and complicated names, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, or because of what they represented. As well as being the god of divine ecstasy and visionary plants, for instance, Zocapelli, maybe on the pronunciation there, was the patron of homosexual male prostitutes. Then there was Tlazolteotl. I'm sorry, it's... I can't pronounce that. She was a goddess who ate excrement and other waste as a symbol of recycling and renewal. Then there's Totec, another of the major deities who was associated with the flaying of skin, again as a symbol of regeneration. The Aztecs worshipped this god during a festival by flaying the skin of their bravest captive, painting it yellow, and wrapping it around somebody else. This person would then be treated as if they were the embodiment of the god. Number 2. They sacrificed humans but don't hold it against them. There were 18 months in the Aztec solar calendar, and almost all of them called for sacrificial rites. Men, women, and children were slaughtered in elaborate ceremonies mostly focused on the removal of their hearts. According to a missionary, many were flayed, burned alive, and hunted like animals as well. Nowadays, in agreement with the conquistadors, many of us would find the practice abhorrent. However, as with any moral evaluation of the past, and especially of an alien culture, it's important to consider the context. For one thing, the Aztecs had no fear of death, and they were under no illusion that life was more important. Furthermore, sacrificial victims were treated with respect, even reverence, and were said to be honored in the afterlife. It's conceivable that many even welcomed such a fate. After all, even priests were known to sacrifice parts of their own bodies. Victims may also have been sedated with powerful deliriants. In any case, Spanish chroniclers, many of whom hadn't even been to the New World, are known to have exaggerated the numbers here. For example, the Friar Diego Duran claimed that 80,400 people were sacrificed over 4 days at the Templo Mayor, but this would have meant 14 sacrifices per minute. Aside from anything else, the city of Tenochtitlan, with its population of 250,000, simply lacked the infrastructure for so much death. In fact, archaeological evidence places the total number of sacrifices ever committed in the city at closer to 1,000. So why do we characterize the Aztecs by this practice? It's not like the Greeks, Romans, Chinese, ancient Egyptians, and many other cultures, including the heretic burning culture from which the conquistadors came, didn't practice it too. Number 1. Take me out to the ballgame. The Aztec ballgame played an important role in society both politically and spiritually. The physical contest also provided a thrilling spectator sport, showcasing several elements found in soccer and basketball. Additionally, large sums were wagered on the games, and intense rivalries between city-states often led to career-ending results, i.e. death of the coaches and the players. Over the years, scholars have debated which team was actually eliminated. As mentioned, sacrifice was considered a noble honor. Nonetheless, it was truly a sport to die for. Teams competed on a rectangular court made of stone measuring 100 to 200 feet long. This court featured ornately carved stone rings. Players attempted to place a hard rubber ball through a stone hoop, an extremely difficult feat that would signal the end of the game. However, points could also be scored in other ways. Spectators viewed the action from an arena often adorned with skull racks of previous sacrifice victims, a macabre hall of fame that players might have wanted to avoid entering. The rough, fast-paced sport required the ball to remain in play using only the head, elbows, knees, and hips. Players wore deerskin guards to protect themselves from injuries. They were constantly hitting the ground in order to prevent the ball from landing. It's also worth noting that the game's origins date back 3,500 years to the region's mother culture, the Olmec, the people of rubber, making it the oldest recorded ball game in the world. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe. I've got brand new videos just like this every day of the week. But if you're looking for more than that, please do check out my other channel called Today I Found Out. You'll find a link to that on the screen now, as well as below this video. And as always, thank you for watching.